that's made. There is a claim that's made about this book, the Quran, that this was written by a man over 1400 years ago. This was apparently written by a man in a desert, peace be upon him. The claim is that Muhammad, upon whom be peace, wrote this book, a man who knew not how to read, nor knew how to write. How could he write such a book? Anyone that's superficially studied this book, just briefly skimmed through this book, would know that something doesn't add up. The claim doesn't add up. But what I want to do today is I want to show you that it is not humanly possible to produce such a book. That this book cannot come from anyone except the divine. Except the divine. I'm going to completely ignore the hecklers because I want to address the people that are sincere. That are sincere and that are here to learn. That are here to discover something. That are sincerely inquiring. So how am I going to show you that this could not be from a man? I'm going to share with you 3 miracles, 3 distinct features of this book which show that it is beyond the productive capacity of a human being. Number 1, the numerical coherency of the Quran. Now before I share this with you, I want to share something. We need to realize that this book was revealed over a 23-year period. 23 years, people. 23 years is longer than some of us have been alive. And also, there were no computers in those days. Some of the verses were revealed instantaneously, addressing certain situations that were unfolding at the time. Now remember this, because this wasn't written down. We didn't have computers to go away, calculate certain things, sit down and think, you know what, I want to mention this in a particular way, and this a certain number of times. We had none of this. Over a 23-year period, revealed at different times, addressing different situations, and on top of this, it was an oral tradition. It was revealed orally, and we know when we speak, we make more mistakes than when we write down. Because when we write things down, we can go back and we can check and check again and ensure that all of it's right. So taking this into consideration, there are some amazing features about this book. Now number 1, in the book, for example, certain opposites are mentioned the same number of times. This life and the hereafter are mentioned the same number of times. Heaven and hell are mentioned the same number of times. You may think it's a coincidence. Let's look further. The word day in its pure form, yom, is mentioned 365 times. Isn't that the same number of times that there are days in the year? There's 365 days in the year. You may still say coincidence. Let's go further. The word month in the pure form is mentioned 12 times. You still may say coincidence. Let's go further. The second chapter of the Quran, Surah Baqarah, it has 286 verses. Now this particular chapter, for your information, was revealed over a 10-year period, almost a decade. Now, taking this into consideration, when you split the second chapter in half, at the 143rd verse, it says the word middle. What are the chances of this happening? You still may say coincidence. Let's go further. In the 3rd chapter, God says, the likeness of Jesus is like that of Adam in the sight of God. The likeness of Jesus is like that of Adam in the sight of God. Now what's interesting is that both of them are mentioned 25 times each in the Quran. Not only this, but up to this verse. Up till this verse, they both mentioned 7 times. And the list goes on. Miracle number 2. The Quran is a literary miracle. It is a literary miracle. It's in the Arabic language, but you cannot produce something like it. And this is profound because you have the finite alphabetical letters. You have the finite grammatical rules. You have all of these things. You have the blueprint, which is the Quran. You can exhaust all possible combinations of the Arabic language, but you cannot produce something like it. For 1400 years, people have tried and tried again, but they have not been able to produce something like it. Why? Why is this the case? Even Orientalist scholars such as Arthur J. Arbery have stated that the Quran is neither prose nor poetry, but it's a unique fusion that we cannot understand, that we cannot comprehend. You can exhaust all possibilities, but you cannot produce something like this book. This is a miracle. If you doubt, this is what God says in the Quran, if you are in doubt as to what we have revealed 3 times in the Quran, if you are in doubt as to what we have revealed, then produce a chapter like it. Produce a chapter like it. For 1400 years, no one's been able to produce something like it. The Quran also has historical miracles. It has numerous historical miracles. As an example, in the Quran, God mentions the ruler of the Egyptians with two distinct titles. King at the time of Joseph, peace be upon him, and Pharaoh at the time of Moses. There's this minute distinction that God makes in the Quran. King and Pharaoh. At the time of revelation, this information was not known because the hieroglyphs were a dead language. No one knew this. The Bible mentions Pharaoh. The Bible mentions Pharaoh throughout history. So there's no way that the Prophet Muhammad upon whom be peace could know this information. But when the Rosetta Stone was discovered and they were able to decode the hieroglyphs, they found that indeed the ruler of the Egyptians was known as king at the time of Joseph and Pharaoh at the time of Moses. How did the Prophet Muhammad have this information? Where did he get this information from? There is no natural explanation. And these are only 3 miracles of the Quran. Here is a book which is not only coherent in what it says in the message, although it was revealed over a 23-year period. Here is a book which uses precise usage of words. Here is a book which is woven with numerical coherencies. Here is a book which has a literary structure, a structure that no human being can replicate. Here is a book which has historical coherencies, historical miracles, historical information that no man knew at the time of revelation. How can such a book exist? How can such a book be produced by a human being?